The church bells tolled softly in the distance as the guests began to file into the grand cathedral, a place where love was supposed to be celebrated but where hidden truths now lurked like shadows just waiting for the right moment to pounce, and Emma, the bride, sat in a side room with her hands trembling as her mother fussed over her veil, telling her how beautiful she looked, how proud the family was, how this was the beginning of a perfect life with Matthew, the wealthy, charming groom who had swept her off her feet, though deep inside Emma's chest something gnawed, an unease she could not explain, as if the air itself held its breath, waiting for a storm. The pews filled with relatives, friends, and business associates of the groom's powerful family, the choir rehearsed under their breath, the scent of roses and lilies thick in the air, and the altar glowed beneath the filtered light of stained glass windows depicting saints and angels watching silently, yet even their painted eyes seemed to anticipate that what was about to unfold was no ordinary wedding, for every person who had gathered believed they were witnessing a fairy tale, a union of wealth and beauty, yet none of them knew that an uninvited guest sat at the back of the church, a tall and striking black woman in a navy dress who clutched her purse like it held not just belongings but the power to shatter illusions, her expression calm yet edged with sorrow and resolve, her gaze fixed not on the decorations, not on the grandeur, but squarely on the man waiting at the altar who had once whispered promises to her in the same tender voice he now reserved for another. And as Emma stepped from the side room, the guests rose to their feet, a chorus of sighs echoing at her beauty, her white gown trailing like a river of light, her father guiding her with proud yet weary hands, and though Emma smiled for the crowd, her eyes betrayed flickers of doubt, darting from face to face until at last they landed on the stranger in the back, and in that instant something shifted within her, for the woman's gaze was unflinching, almost mournful, almost warning, and though Emma did not know her name, something in her heart whispered that this woman held a truth Emma desperately needed to hear. Yet the music swelled, the priest opened his book, the groom's smile spread wide though beads of sweat dotted his temple, and step by step Emma drew closer until she stood at the altar, her hand slipping into Matthew's, the crowd sighing again at the picture of perfection. But then, just as the priest began the sacred words, Emma felt her heart hammering, the room spinning with colors. And before she even realized what she was doing, her hand lifted, trembling, pointing across the silent pews toward the black woman, and in a voice that cracked like lightning she demanded, why are you here?" And the gasp that followed from the crowd was not polite, not soft, but a collective jolt as if the entire church had frozen in time, the choirboys' mouths hanging open, the bridesmaids stiffening in horror, the groom's face draining of color as though the very life had been pulled from him, while the woman in navy rose slowly, her back straight, her presence commanding, and in that heavy silence broken only by the echo of Emma's question, the woman's voice rang clear, deep, and steady. "Because he promised me this same forever 2 years ago," and it was as though the ceiling itself might crack beneath the weight of those words, guests exchanging frantic whispers, the groom stammering, his lips parting to form excuses that never made it past his dry throat, his mother leaping up with frantic eyes as though she could somehow silence the truth, but the woman was undeterred, her heel striking against the marble floor as she walked forward, each step echoing louder than the organ. Each step peeling away the groom's carefully constructed facade, and when she reached the front she pulled from her purse a stack of photographs, letters, text messages, and finally a ring, the very ring Matthew had slipped on her finger in a hotel room lit only by candles where he had sworn she was his only love, and now he stood sweating, trembling, trying to protest, "She's lying, Emma, you have to believe me." But his voice cracked under the sheer force of evidence, the murmurs in the church growing into shocked voices, relatives of Emma shaking their heads, friends turning away in disgust, and Emma, though her heart shattered, did not collapse, did not faint, but instead stood taller, her tears drying into steel as she ripped off her veil and stared her groom down, her voice sharp enough to cut the air. "You looked me in the eyes every day and planned to build a life with me while living another with her, and you thought I would stand here in front of God and everyone and let you make me your puppet?" The crowd was breathless, the groom's father red with fury, his mother pleading with Emma to calm down, to continue, to save the family's reputation. But Emma no longer cared for reputation, no longer cared for the gilded cage of wealth. Instead she turned to the black woman, her eyes softening with gratitude, taking her hand in front of everyone and saying with trembling sincerity, "You saved me today, not ruined me, because you gave me the truth he never would have." And then Emma faced the guests, raising her voice so all could hear, declaring that her wedding would not be built on deception, that no amount of money, status, or charm could ever justify a vow already broken, and with that she stepped down from the altar, her father following proudly, the black woman walking beside her, and together they strode down the aisle past stunned silence, whispers chasing them, the groom's desperate cries echoing uselessly behind, his face collapsing into shame as his double life was exposed. And outside, beneath the ringing bells that now tolled like a warning rather than a blessing, Emma breathed deeply, free at last, while inside the church the guests sat frozen, unable to forget the moment the bride stopped mid-ceremony, pointed at the black woman, and turned what should have been a celebration of lies into a triumph of truth. A story that would be retold for years as the day when courage shattered deceit in front of all who had come expecting only a fairy tale, but instead witnessed a reckoning.